Dear friends and music lovers, welcome to the second episode in conversation with David Whitwell. Today the topic is where does music exist? I leave the floor to Maestro David Whitwell.
In the first evening of these discussions, I discussed the fact that Aristotle created a new a branch of philosophy called aesthetics. Tonight, I would like to mention that Aristotle also made a very important contribution in being the first person to write about the fact that if you use the word dog, D-O-G, dog, it's only a symbol of the real animal. The word itself is not a dog. And then he said, if you write the word dog, D-O-G, that's only a symbol of the spoken version, which is a symbol of the real dog. So the written D-O-G is 2 generations away from the real thing. And that is precisely the problem of music notation when we try to write music on paper. What's on paper is only a symbol of the real thing. In fact, what is on paper is really just grammar. A C major chord is not music. A C major chord is an element of the grammar of some composition. So if the music is not found in the score, where does music exist? Well, first of all, music is the only art form that cannot be seen. You can go to a concert and you can see the performers, you can see the piano, but you cannot see music. So where does music exist? It exists only in the mind of the listener, and of course, the mind of the performer and the composer. Now, this all began to make a lot more sense with the past century of research in brain function. We know now that we have 2 hemispheres to our brain. The official medical term is left side and right side. They're libraries. The left side library, the left side hemisphere, is a library of data. It includes words, it can make sentences, it can write, it includes numbers. But everything in the left hemisphere, 100% of everything in the left hemisphere is secondary information. It's something somebody told us. It's something that we read someplace. And furthermore, it's all past tense, whereas we are in the present tense. The right hemisphere is a library of experience, our own experience, and it's all present tense, which means the right side is the real us. Now, this explains how it's possible that an ordinary listener can listen to music and have very deep, strong feelings about what they hear, even though they know nothing about music. They know nothing about the names of notes, the names of chords, and so forth. It's a separate experience that seems to be universal. Every language, every continent, every country has music, and it seems to be innate. It comes, it comes with us. Now, it also explains why the great composer Mahler would say that the important things in music are not found in the notes. In other words, the important things in music are not found on the page. they're found in the experience of the listener. And by the way, this explains the difficulty in trying to write a love letter. If you think of someone you love, your thoughts can be very precise, very strong, very real. But when you try to write a love letter, you must go to the left hemisphere where the words are and where the ability to write sentences is. And so you're asking the left hemisphere to write a letter about a subject it knows nothing about, because the left hemisphere knows absolutely nothing about the experience of love. And so love letters tend to become very elementary and very incomplete and usually not very satisfying. Now, let's talk for a moment about the conductor. My definition of a conductor is someone who brings to the rehearsal or brings to the concert everything that is not on paper. And how does he do this? The most important, well, let me first give a story that amplifies this idea. This comes from the literature of India, the Sufi repertoire, language, philosophy, of a student who was walking through the village of his teacher. And he sees when he comes to his teacher's house, he sees the teacher out in the front yard on his hands and knees looking in the grass. And the student says, "Master, what are you looking for?" And his teacher answers, "I'm looking for my house key. I've lost my house key. Come and help me." So the student gets on his hands and knees, helps look in the grass. Pretty soon the student realizes that this is really just some kind of lesson. So he asks the teacher, "Master, where did you actually lose your key?" And the teacher said, "Well, actually, I lost it in the house someplace." And so the student said, "Well, if you lost the key in the house, why are we out here outside looking in the grass?" And the teacher answered, "Because there's more light out here." And that's what the conductor has to do. The conductor, he can study the score as long as he wants, but at some point, he must leave the score behind and go somewhere where there's more light. And the most helpful tool for doing this is memorization. So let's talk a moment about memorizing music. If I were to ask a member of the listening audience tonight, any Italian musician who's listening, if I were to ask them, "Do you know the Verdi Requiem?" they would immediately say, of course I know the Verdi Requiem." And that's a true answer. But they do not mean by saying that they could take a pencil and paper and write out the viola part of the entire Verdi Requiem. Because that would be an example of, that would be an example of photographic memory. And photographic memory has to do with the eye. So it's of no help to us. We need something that has to do with the ear. So what we memorize is what Wagner wrote about at some length, something he called the melos, and a word similar to melody because melody is one of the main things that we listen to. Wagner meant by melos the whole stream of experience that goes by you when you're listening to a piece of music. That's what we memorize. We do not memorize the names of notes. We do not memorize the names of chords and so forth. Now, there's a very nice story that that reflects on this. A story about Toscanini. After he retired, he was living in New York City, and a young conductor got permission to go and interview Toscanini. So he enters the house, and he finds Toscanini sitting at an upright piano. In front of him is a score to Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, and Toscanini is looking at the score and playing on the piano. And the student says, "Maestro, you have conducted the Fifth Symphony of Beethoven for 70 years. You've conducted it from memory for 70 years. Why are you now sitting at the piano studying it at this time?" And Toscanini looked at him and said, "Well, what if I missed something?" And I'm sure Toscanini did, because since music is part of the experiential side of ourselves and part of the present tense, it also means that a year from now, if you think of a piece of music today, and if a year from now you think about the same piece of music, you're still going to be present tense at that time, but you'll have an additional year of experience. And so you are likely to look at the score differently because of your accumulated experience. And so Toscanini, even though he conducted the work for 70 years without scores, it's very possible that at this time he could discover a new idea, a new way to phrase something, or something new that maybe Beethoven felt that he would not have recognized 20 years ago. But with the additional experience, now he in the present tense, now he can understand this is something new and different. And so this reflects what one often hears, that music is a lifetime study. It's not like mathematics, where you can learn a subject and walk away from it. With music, because you're gaining an experience year after year, you keep studying it because your interpretation can change year after year. It becomes always present tense, but with additional experience. And so I leave the listener tonight with this thought. If you've decided to become a musician, then you're obligated to study music the rest of your life, and you have no choice. So with that, good evening, and I will see you on another occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, Maestro David Whitwell, for this interesting and illuminating conversation with you. I remember to our friends to take a look at the book of Maestro Whitwell, Psychology of Conducting. See you soon on the Major TV for the next episode in conversation with David Whitwell.